Okay, hey guys, I'm Heidi Keränen and I'm doing this training because I'm a Bachelor of Social Services from my previous degree, and today I'll be talking about elderly care in Finland. And I've done a lot of work on this field. I've been doing this for 5 years, both in private elderly homes as well as in public ones and in home care as well. First, I want to discuss why this training is important, and it's because in Finland the age is not necessarily as valued as somewhere else. For example, the old people are not treated as I think they should be treated. And also the individualistic culture means that old people are expected to survive on their own, rather than given the support of the family. Also in Finland, the structure of elderly care is the kind that many oldies live by themselves, or they are lonely. And I think those two things are different. You can live alone and not be lonely. Also, another problem in the Finnish elderly care is the lack of power and participation from the elderly's point of view. So many elderly people don't participate in the society or in the lives of their relatives or close people. Also, another problem is the medicalization of the care. So instead of treating the social or psychological problems, the elderly people are treated with a lot of medicine. So many problems that could be solved with affection, touching, or listening are solved by pumping the elderly with medicine. This is of course like a bit harsh to say, but this is what I've seen in Oulu at least. And I have heard that medicalization is seen as a problem in the whole of Finland. But there is of course good things about the Finnish elderly care, but here I'm focusing more on the problems because this is what I would like to change. Next, I'll go really briefly through the structure. First, there's the independently living elderly people. Then there's the home care, when people live in their own homes, and then the nurses go there. Then there are centers for elderly people, where there's libraries, pools, gyms and such. And then there's full-time elderly care, which is when the people are 24/7 in a home-like hospital care, and they're usually fed to the bed. And then there's the final care before passing away. That's the basic structure. Okay, if there's something I'd like you to learn, it's the fact that the old people are amazing individuals. There are not two old people that are similar. Each one of them is a special and unique individual, and therefore they also deserve our respect. And by listening to the elderly people, we can learn so much about life. For example, I was working in the home care in the city center of Oulu, and I talked to these elderly people who had been the secretary of the head of the town, and had so many interesting stories to share. Also, I was talking with this lady who was the first person in Finland to be diagnosed with breast cancer and survived, and also like with this woman who had seen the whole spectrum of music in the library, who had been in charge of the vinyls, the CDs, the cassettes, the whole of it. So it's important to listen and understand. And also, although they are a very homogeneous group of people, there are some similarities. And the challenges that I'd like to mention are the memory loss, almost, well, very, like the biggest group in the elderly care are the people with memory loss of some sort. It has different levels, it needs different kind of attending to, but memory loss is something which I think would be best cured with like just having someone to talk to, but there are also medicines for it, and well, memory loss is something that may affect the behavior of the elderly people, but you can read more for it for yourselves. Then another thing is the loneliness. So many elderly people really like the attention, the company, someone to talk to, someone to listen to, so that's a really important challenge to look at. Then there's the weakened sense of hearing and seeing, so like paying attention to the lighting and also to the hearing device. Like, okay, I'm gonna give you a really practical tip. If you hear a wee sound in the nearby of the elderly people, they probably won't hear a word you're saying, because the tube that's connected to the hearing device is unplugged. So they've got no idea what you're saying. So by clicking the tube, they're back to like hearing. So do that. And another thing is poverty. Many people live really poorly, and also deaths and illnesses, be really sensitive about them. And also many elderly people in Finland have faced war. Either they've been in the war, either they're widowed by the war, or they've been children during the war, so they might have been sent to, for example, Sweden. That's a really common thing. Okay, here is the slide called Needs of the Elderly. Here I have a little pair exercise about touching, because many of us think we know what touching is, but there's never enough practice in touching. And in elderly care, touching is in a big role when you want to make a connection to the old person, or when you want to show your affection. So I would like you to practice so that one is laying down, and then you practice how you're approaching a person who's lying down, because it's totally different to a person who's sitting or standing. So, and also, what are the most important things about touching the elderly? Okay, this might sound a bit, well, silly, but like the practical things are the most important ones. So no poking, no touching on this area, rather on arms, shoulders, hands, and keep eye contact. Also, if the person is lying down, go to the head end of the bed and make sure you have eye contact, and that you touch the hands, the shoulders really carefully. Okay, also what else they need is respect, sensitivity, and going out, because many of the elderly people in Finland stay in their home and watch TV all day. So going out is really important. And also support in daily routines, that you help them with the practical things like making food and things like that. From which we get to the next point. What is the most important thing in all things you do with the elderly people is that they should be the subject, not the object. So instead of them being the subject of what you do, like they are like the focus of your doing, they should be the one doing, and you should just be supporting and guiding. For example, when you want the elderly person to make food, you don't take the plate out of the fridge and put it in front of her. Instead, you guide the other person to, so what do we do next? And then they say, and they do, and we just like give clues, like, and ask the right questions. That's important in like the participatory method of being with the elderly. And here there's a little task you should do in pairs about listening. You can do it when you're there with your pair, and make sure you look the pair in the eye the whole time they're discussing, and use your body to encourage the other person to talk. I've seen people do this. Don't do that. Rather, keep your arms open. Do gestures that make the other person talk. And also, leaning forward is a sign of you listening. And instead of just listening, you need to also understand that you are actually interested and you care about what is said. Okay, so you do this at home or wherever you are. Next, this is really practical things what you have to remember. This is, don't forget this no matter what you do. First is the professional confidentiality. It means that whatever you do, don't give the information of the elderly people to other people. The name, the address, the personal security code, things like that. Because there are people who steal identities, the elderly people's money, who break into their homes. So it's really important you don't give those things out. Also, you have to be calm and friendly yourself, because also elderly people sense what kind of mood you're in. And if you go there like this, then they're gonna be like that as well. So be smiley. Smiles are infectious. And then the other thing is the hygiene. First of all, there are 2 ways to have good hand hygiene: washing them or using the gloves. And these are because the elderly people are really sensitive to infections. A flu on you, a little bit of fever might not do much, but for elderly person it could be deadly. So be careful you take good hygiene. So wash your hands, put gloves. Either every time you go in a new home or a new elderly care place, first thing you wash hands and put gloves on, or use the hand sanitizer. Also when you leave, because you don't want the infections to go from one elderly person to another, or from you to the elderly person, or elderly person to you. So this is really important. Then there's the hearing aids. Make sure they're working. And then also, in everything you do, you have to observe what is needed and then adapt your behavior according to that. Okay, I've gone through this very quickly. This was just a short introduction, all of it in a nutshell. I hope you really learned something. Now, these next slides are about you and about what are the ways of you empowering the elderly people. And here, you should discuss in groups what kind of activities would work. You can think of activities to do alone with one elderly person or in a group. Okay, I want to give you a couple of advices. Rather not sitting and not in front of a screen, because elderly people do a lot sitting in front of the TV. So rather something active. Also, try to plan them so that the elderly people are in an active role. Also think of the practical side of it. For example, transportation, moving from one place to another. Many elderly people have difficulties moving from one place to another, and it's important to plan breaks in between walking, because they can't necessarily walk for long distances. and then also make sure they're planned individually if you're doing so. Not all things suit for everyone. Some might have difficulties with dancing, some might have difficulties with religious things, so you really have to ask what they would like to do instead of you just doing something. Okay, so thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you, Heidi.